Everyone. A very warm welcome to today's Live Well Live webinar. We're going to be talking all about habits today, and really, this is a very fundamental point or part of your weight loss journey. Just for introductions, I am Ruth Taylor. I'm a nutritionist with Boots Online Doctor and also a registered nurse and health and wellness coach. I work as part of the lifestyle medicine team and also dip into the messaging service run by the Boots Online Doctor, and very much enjoy being here with you every week to really help you on your weight loss journeys and to provide you with a point of contact with us, the lifestyle medicine team, so that you can bring your questions. And really, we want to support you as much as we can. We're very excited to be introducing Alison to the webinar team. So, Alison, sorry to put you on the spot, but would you like to just tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yes,
Um,
of course. Guest presenter there. It kind of insinuates I must be important, but I'm not at all. Um,
that's so not
so,
true.
my name's Alison Taylor Lamb. I'm the lead nurse here at Boots Online Doctor. Um, and most of my weight loss work actually has been since I joined the company. But I have helped and supported adults with their weight loss journeys in general practice. And I've also done a lot of weight loss work with children and young people as well when I used to work in school nursing. So that's me.
Brilliant.
Welcome.
Really lovely to have you here, Alison.
Thank you. Thanks for
We are stuck in a very horrible rainy days. I'm down in Hampshire. Alison, you're up in London, and we're joined today by Raman, who's here with all of the technical help. So thank you so much, Raman, for being here. Just to remind you, we're here generally most weeks, so we do occasionally miss a week, but we're here 100% to support you on your weight loss journey. So we'd love to know if there's anything that you would like to know from us. We will do our best to answer your questions. If there's something you ask us that is important that we don't know the answers to today, then we will have a look at the research and come back with those answers on another occasion, because we really like to make sure that we're giving you really bona fide, helpful information. One of the things that we like about the webinars is the opportunity to cut through all of the confusing messages that are out there in the wider world in terms of weight loss. You know, there are always news stories, there are always conflicting messages about how to behave to lose weight successfully, what you have to do. There are all sorts of fad diets out there, and we want to cut through all of that and really get rid of all of that confusing information. All of the information that we share is evidence-based. Also, just so you know, you're very welcome to put your questions straight into the Q&A box. We'll have a look at those at the end of the slide share, but also, put your comments in the chat box as normal. But just to also safety net everything that we do, if you have any health related issues or any very specific medical questions, we would ask you to direct those to your medical provider. So if you're confused about that and you ask a question that we can't answer because we're in a sort of generic webinar situation, we will either not answer it or direct you to speak to somebody within your own medical team. Great. So today we are talking all about habits, and this is a really important subject. We know that this is something that people often struggle with, and we know that habits are one of the things that can completely derail our weight loss journeys. So this is why this is such a fundamentally important webinar to be at. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Um, so why are habits so important? I guess it's because most of us know what we do most days is based on what we've done every day. We learn our habits in infancy or in our young years of life. So things that we do in terms of how we eat, where we buy our food, the type of food that we buy, are very much grounded around what we have always done, unless we've really put a lot of thought and effort into that journey. And that also applies to how much we move, our sort of movement, and really all of the health parameters that affect our weight loss are really based hugely on habit. So we have to really understand that. But the great news is our brain has got an amazing capacity to relearn, to swap, to unlearn, and to learn new habits. And this is one of the things that we have really come to understand. One of the points that we know as the weight loss team at the Boots Online Doctor, that this is fundamental to get right and to create that shift in. It's almost like thinking about the decisions that we make every day. We're almost like having a little angel on one shoulder doing all the right things and a little devil on the other shoulder doing all of the naughty things. And I think we can all recognize that we have different parts to us. We have little people in our heads that will tell us to misbehave or who would like to lead us astray in certain situations. And that is all around us. So we need to challenge ourselves. We need to challenge our behaviors and we need to challenge the habits that we have learnt and the habits that we've got into because we need to move forward. So today we want you to start thinking about what your habits are, what the things are that may be tripping you up and preventing you from getting where you really, really are motivated, you really want to be. You are motivated because you're here on a rainy Monday lunchtime in this disgusting weather and you're giving us your hour of your time. So thank you so much for being here. This is obviously really important. So we'd love to hear from you a little bit more. We need to check in with ourselves quite regularly in terms of our commitment to weight loss, what we're doing that's derailing our progress. It's about being honest with ourselves. I think it can be really easy to kid ourselves that we're doing everything right, but we know secretly there are things that perhaps could be improved, or maybe we don't even know that. Sometimes we don't even know what we're doing wrong, and that can be really frustrating for all of us, can't it? So, Alison, what do you think about this whole habit malarkey?
Okay, so identifying habits that might lead to weight gain. Um, so if we think most of our behaviors are habits that we have practiced many times, a lot of them are ingrained. We don't even have to think about them before we do them.
Mm.
And it's almost like driving, and I don't know if anyone else is guilty of this, but you're so used to doing it, you can drive a few miles and actually not even remember driving those miles or what was along the route because driving is so habitual for those of us that have driven for a long time and we do it without thinking. So we get to the point where we do things automatically without maybe, not all the time, but sometimes without stopping and thinking first. And of course, in terms of foods and snacks and all the lovely things that we like to treat ourselves with, this can become a little bit problematic. So neuroplasticity, it's the ability of the nervous system to change its activity in response to intrinsic or extrinsic stimuli. So intrinsic is belonging, it's naturally essential. Extrinsic is not part of the essential nature. So intrinsic is when you're really motivated to do something like planning a nice day out, planning an evening out. You're really motivated, you really want to do that. You get excited about it. Extrinsic, we can make a comparison maybe to maybe not all of us, but some of us might not enjoy our work. We don't really want to do it. We're not motivated to do it, but we have to go to work for various reasons. Um, so it means a certain event may trigger a certain behavior in our memory. Some behaviors may be an act of unconsciousness, like I referred to before with the driving. So if we've rewarded ourselves with food when something happens in our brain, we expect this reward the next time it happens, again and again, and so on. I mean, I was trying to equate it actually, Ruth, to Pavlov's dogs, and I don't know if social conditioning is a similar kind of thing, where we base our actions and our habits on something that's so ingrained in us.
Yeah.
It almost becomes a natural thing to do. We're conditioned to do it almost.
Yeah, I think you're right, Alison. I work with a lot of people who are aiming to lose weight, and I once had a conversation with somebody who every time he drove home, he would always stop at a petrol station. And part of the reason he stopped at the petrol station, apart from to get fuel for his car, was to actually get all sorts of naughty treats for himself. And it was just the habit that was sabotaging his weight loss efforts. But it was just such a habit that he enjoyed. It was his pleasure. It was part of what he did. It was sort of part of what got him through a challenging day at work, was looking forward to this event at the end of the day. And it's sort of, it sounds ridiculous. I'm sure we can all recognize we do this, but it sounds a bit ridiculous to say that that was an automatic habit, but it really was just built into his day, so much so that it happened until he had to start thinking and breaking it down and thinking, okay, I need to change this. Maybe I buy petrol on my way to work. Perhaps I don't stop on my way home when I'm exhausted. Perhaps, perhaps if I do need to buy petrol, I pay at the sort of fueling station rather than going into the shop so that I don't feel tempted to buy sweets, and really for each and every one of us, it's about breaking down those situations where there is an automatic trigger. I think that is a really, yeah, it is a bit like being programmed to behave in a certain way. It's most peculiar, but it's human nature. So we've got a poll that we're going to um, share with you about what habits you think you might have that are getting in your way and stopping you from moving forwards with your weight loss. Now, just to remind anyone who has not been here before, the polls are completely anonymous. We don't know who's answering what. Hopefully, you can see this now. Do take a couple of minutes to have a look. We're really interested, and we will share the results. We've got a sort of medium-sized audience with us today, so there's a lot of enough of you to be sharing these in a meaningful way. And it's really interesting, isn't it? When you're sitting there thinking, did you know this before the webinar? Is this something you're admitting to yourself for the first time? Is this something that's been tripping you up for a while? I can see that the most popular answer so far is stress eating. How interesting. And we have a hugely stressed population. And I think, I don't know how old everyone is, but I know that this sort of like working years when you're trying to lose weight and you're balancing the needs of maybe older adults in your family and younger children and grandchildren, there are huge numbers of stresses in your life, let alone working stress. So, yeah, so that's currently at 59% of you are sort of like who've taken part in the poll are experiencing that. So let's have a look. I'm going to quickly end the poll now because I don't want to spend all day doing polls, but it is interesting. And I'm going to quickly share the results with everyone. So as you can see, we were just asking you what habits you have that are hindering your weight loss. So I can see, Alison, can you see this as well? Skipping meals and overeating is quite an issue for 35% of people, stress eating for about 58% of people. Um, Not eating enough protein, we talk about that such a lot. So, really, something to be thinking about in terms of satiety and energy and repair. Really important to be thinking about that protein, really making sure it comes in. Giving into cravings is right up there in terms of a high issue for many people. So, let's think about those cravings. When are they happening? Start thinking, start keeping a bit of a journal. Start thinking, when are those cravings happening? Is there a specific day? Is there a specific time of day? Are they happening quite randomly for you? Is it because you're not drinking enough water? Is it because you're really stressed? Is it because you haven't had enough to eat for breakfast? All of these things. Um, Raman, if you don't mind sharing the food and mood journal, um, the tracker, that would be really great because for some people, actually tracking your habits and what's happening for you, the skipping meals and overeating or the sort of cravings, and actually seeing if there's any associations between what you're doing and what's happening in the build up to those cravings would be really helpful to unpick for you, I would say. Would you agree, Alison? It's sort of crucial learning, isn't it?
It is crucial learning. I'm actually really pleased that drinking sugary drinks is the lowest
That is really good news.
because I
Yeah.
always worry about teeth. Um, um, but yeah, no, that's so true. And it's about breaking a cycle, isn't it? And when you were talking about the chap at the petrol garage, I was thinking of lunchtimes. Very often I will go to Tesco to get some lunch if I've been naughty and not brought any in from home, and I'll always get the same thing.
Yeah.
Whereas if I shopped somewhere else for lunch, I'd probably get something different. So it's just a very similar behavior, isn't it?
Isn't that interesting? It's really true, isn't it? Because we are such creatures of habit that I think it's funny when you're in that environment, it almost triggers that you know what to look for. Maybe it's speed. You know, you might be just reaching for the same thing because you know you enjoy it, you know it's tasty, you know you can afford it, you know it's sold in that particular shop. You know, we're all sort of like squeezing lunch times into shorter and shorter time as well. So it becomes a pressure, doesn't it, just to grab something that you know is going to sustain you for a few hours.
Exactly right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of research that looks at the importance of healthy habits and how much it makes it easier for us all to be healthy, to lose weight. And the interesting thing about making habits, we're going to talk a little bit in a minute about how to make new habits because that's really important. But the more decisions that you have to make in a day, the harder actually staying on course becomes. There it could be that you wake up in the morning, you think, right, I'm going to have a really great day. And then, as we can see from your poll questions, a lot of you are particularly stressed or you're having cravings or, you know, there are things going on for you. So as the day progresses, if you're having a particularly stressful day and you're having to make a lot of decisions and you haven't planned your food or you've not thought about what you're going to eat, it's going to become incredibly hard to stay on track. It's going to be incredibly hard to ignore those biscuits that somebody's brought into the office, or the crisps that are sitting in your cupboard, or the sweets that you've bought for someone for a special occasion, whatever it is. There's this thing called decision fatigue, and actually, it's really interesting that actually just says that the more decisions we have to make, the less capacity we have to make easy, healthy decisions. So it makes absolute sense that if we're really stressed, that unless we've got some good habits in place, it's going to be really hard to make healthy decisions because you become exhausted, you burn out. You know, you can burn out with making or even thinking, oh my goodness, I just can't think what I'm going to eat today. So, you know, you get to tea time and you've got to cook meals for several people or even just for yourself and you're completely exhausted. If you haven't got in the habit of having some food in the fridge, which is going to fit in with how you want to eat, it can be really hard, can't it? So I think we know that habit making is really important. What we also know from the research is we often get asked this question, how long does it take to make a new habit? We should ask you this as a quiz. I might do that next time we run this webinar. But the research tells us that it can take up to a year to really nail that new habit. It can take as little as 21 days. We'll talk about how in a minute, but the easier a new habit is to make, the less time it will be to embed it. The harder it is, the bigger the shift, the bigger the change, the longer it will take to make that habit. And I think what the research also tells us, and I'm sure this is true, it's definitely true for me, is if there's a lot of stress going on, I'll automatically go back to type and just eat that sandwich for lunch instead of having those healthy vegetables and some protein because it's just easier and I don't have to put any energy into it. So making habits is really, really helpful for all of those things. So, Alison, do you want to talk us through this behavior change cycle? I find this quite interesting.
Oh, yeah, everyone loves a cycle.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, this is a really interesting process that we go through when making a change. And it is helpful to share because the important thing to note is that for any one thing we want to change, we go through this cycle and it's not necessarily something we're aware of. It just happens as a natural instinct. So it's quite possible at any time you may be in an action stage. If I actually just go through the stages of the change cycle. So we've got pre-contemplation, contemplation leading to preparation, leading to action, maintenance, and then, of course, for most of us, it's very usual and quite healthy to relapse. Um, it's quite possible, as I was saying, at any one time you may be in an action stage with one change, um, maintaining another and not ready to face yet another change. So trying to integrate multiple changes too fast, too quickly, in too short a time frame is almost setting up to fail. Um, so please don't be harsh on yourself. As I think it was Sue, was it, who said, be kind to yourself. Yes, it was Sue. Talk kindly to yourselves when implementing change. And it's very normal. But what is also important is that the fundamental pillars for weight loss all need our attention. So I know these topics have been talked about before. I don't know if we're going through them a little bit today, but we can all relate habits to these: sleep, stress management, our diet, of course, activity and hydration. Is there any of those particularly maybe that you could work on specifically to start with? Or if you're further along your journey, maybe it's time to incorporate another change if you feel ready for it. And it's also really important to recognise that a stage of relapse is normal. It's all part of the process, and we need to be prepared for relapse so that we can overcome that wobble and as speedily as possible and limit the damage that that relapse may cause. Going back to Sue, be kind to yourself when something doesn't go right. And we can all learn from things that don't go right. It's no different in this case. Am I right, Ruth?
I think you're really right. I think it's a really important point. I think we're so good at feeling, maybe because of the way we've been brought up or the way we've learnt to talk to ourselves, or, we know that a lot of people who are overweight have low self-esteem. They are very self-critical. So if you're in that, self-critical head, it's time to move away from that, and just to really acknowledge that we're human, just like anyone else, and that things will go right, things will go wrong, and the important thing when things go wrong, like you were saying, Alison, is to learn from that and not to beat yourself up about it. Just say, okay, so that went wrong. What happened there? What were the set of circumstances that led that to not go as well as I wanted it to, and what could I do differently next time to make it a better outcome for me, or maybe just different life phases are tough and we just have to accept we can't be perfect. I think that's something that we talk about a lot here, is it's sort of like we just have to be consistent. We don't have to be perfect. If you consistently turn up for yourself regularly, it will make all the difference. So, and practice. We have to practice to get things right, don't we? So, when you're learning to ride a bike or driving a car, you can't just get on the bike and ride it or get in a car and drive it. You have to learn it. It's no different. And I think we forget that. So, some interesting research, I think, about how to make habits is really important to be thinking about, because I think this isn't something we learn until we're perhaps adults and we have the opportunity to think about it. So there are all sorts of processes. There's some great books out there. There's the book by James Clear, the Atomic Habits book. That's absolutely fantastic, very easy to read, and also available to listen to on all sorts of talking books if you don't have time to sit and read and you want to check out this sort of information in more detail. That's another interesting way. Um, but actually, it's almost that we have to think about recognizing just what we're saying, setbacks are part of the journey. Choosing one thing to do at a time, so change one thing at a time rather than trying to change everything at once. So if it is for you that your sleep is a problem and that's really setting you up for a disastrous day, then maybe the first thing to change is your sleep. Or if it is that you miss out having breakfast, or you have a sort of less rich breakfast in terms of nutrients, but actually you notice that by 11 o'clock you're really beginning to get hungry, or by 3 o'clock in the afternoon you're really beginning to get grouchy. Sometimes what's happening later in the day can be a direct result of what's happened earlier in the day in terms of our food. So it's about unpicking and recognizing patterns of behavior. Um, make a list of your eating habits. So be really honest with yourself. Are you grazing? Are you snacking? Are you spending the evening grazing or eating really large meals? And really, what the suggestion is that actually, to make it really simple, we swap a new habit for an old habit. So we don't totally put something in, we just swap things around. So it could be that the chap at the petrol station, for example, we could have got him to swap to having an apple at 4 o'clock in the afternoon so that he got rid of the sort of hunger pangs and he had the joy of eating something, but it was completely different and was building his health rather than maybe undoing it. So it's just about swapping things around. We're going to talk about the cycle of creating new habits. So, Alison, over to you for that, I think.
Just wanted to begin there, Ruth, that try making a new habit because when we have, should I call them bad habits or are you referred to old habits? Maybe they're not so good habits. Um, I guess making a new habit, is that maybe easier than breaking a not so good habit? I don't know. I'm not expecting
Yeah,
you to have an answer, Ruth, but sort of putting a bad habit away and moving from that is quite a tricky thing. But then I guess that comes back to distractions, um, to thinking about your motivation and yeah, how enthused you are about making a change.
I guess if it's a
Um,
habit that's consistently stopping you from getting what it is you really want. We talk in previous podcasts this year about your why, your deep-seated emotional reason for being on this journey. If there's something that you're doing that is preventing you from getting the progress that makes you feel happy, whatever that looks like, whether it's more energy, weight loss, feeling great, having that sort of sense of energy when you wake up in the morning, putting on clothes that you feel good in. We all have different things that make us feel good. Um, if there's something you're doing every day or regularly enough that's preventing it, then it's time to really challenge yourself about that, I think, because that might be the one thing that really makes all the difference. Um,
yeah, it could be. None of it is easy, is it? That's for sure.
no, no,
Um,
no. But
yeah,
then many things in life aren't easy, are they?
no, that's so true. That's so true. So the cycle of creating new habits then. So make it obvious. Um, give yourself a cue. So if you think there's a chance you might forget, um, then leave something out, maybe. Um, for example, if you want to try a new exercise regime in the morning, leave out your trainers, leave out a water bottle ready to fill with water, whatever it is. As long as it's some kind of item or something that jogs you into remembering that you want to go ahead with that new habit. Um, make it attractive, create a positive image of this. Um, so it might be thinking about an image of what you might want to look like, or thinking about the feeling you may get when you start a new habit. And I remember Ruth, you saying, oh, I don't know if I should say it here or not, but there was just a comment about from somebody about realizing how wonderful they felt in the morning um, by not drinking alcohol the night before,
Yeah,
and possibly how great they felt in the morning really kept them motivated and enthused to continue that new habit of no evening drinking. So thinking about how good it makes you feel is so important and can really keep you on track. Make it easy. Remember small steps. Again, going back to the cycle of change, don't try and make things too difficult, your changes too difficult, because again, you're going to set yourself up to fail, and chances of relapse are probably more likely. And make it satisfying, something that you can achieve, something that's realistic and that you will feel a sense of reward from. And this is an important step of the loop. We mentioned cycles before, that can keep the cycle going. Celebrate your success and allow yourself to feel pleased with yourself as well. And then take action and repeat, 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 repeat. Um, and habit forming, remember, is a process. It won't happen overnight. Like Ruth said, it could take up to 12 months, I guess, on what the change is, what the new habit is you want to incorporate. But staying committed and motivated um, will get you there, and eat, sleep, repeat.
Yeah, eat, sleep, repeat. That should be our slogan. Yeah, I think it's about feeling good and really, maybe that sense of reward or rewarding yourself. I noticed there was a comment from Sue in the chat box about how she had uh, had some wins this week by not sort of undermining perhaps what might have negative been a negative thing. It's sort of about changing our mindset, isn't it? It's about actually if we reward ourselves, it boosts our dopamine. So that's our chemical that makes us feel good. It also reinforces those positive neuroplastic pathways. So in terms of making a new habit, if we actually achieve making that habit and we will reward ourselves as a result of having done that, that habit will become associated in our heads with feeling good. So then, actually, our brains love to feel good. They short circuit to things that make them feel good. So if you start associating that new habit in your head with feeling good, then it's going to stick. So that reward is a really important part of that process, isn't it? So then thinking about this, one of the suggestions is that we do this thing called habit stacking. So we find something that we do every day, but like you were saying, Alison, if you want to go for a walk first thing in the morning, put your trainers out. So is it first thing in the morning when you clean your teeth, you want to do some squats? I was doing that a little while ago, and I found that really helpful just to be attaching those habits onto things I was doing. Wasn't making a big drama of it. I was just squeezing things in to my day in a way that just made it simple. So, or putting the kettle on, and every time you put the kettle on, if you're somebody who doesn't naturally drink water, it could be there. Every time you put the kettle on for a hot drink, you make yourself some hot water, because some people prefer drinking hot water, or you could have some cold water. But it could just be your way of bringing in a little bit more water. So it's for each and every one of us to find something that makes it easy. Or it could be that when you clear up an evening, you make your packed lunch to take to work and you put a post-it note on your back door so that you have a little reminder that you don't have to go to Tesco's then, Alison, in your lunch hour. So, so you set yourself up to win, I think, is the absolutely clear thing. I think it's really important. So we're gonna want you to start thinking about what you might do differently. And I think we've covered this already. How many habits at once, Alison? I think we've talked this through.
Yeah, we have. Just don't, yeah, think too, well, as this is on the slide, actually, too big and try and cram too many changes in one go.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important message there.
Yeah. And then we're just going to ask you what you might do differently. So we're going to share another poll with you. Um, sorry, they've changed the whole system of finding things on my laptop or on Zoom for whatever reason, just to make life fun. So let's have a look at this, and I'm going to share a new poll with you. Let's see what we're doing with the polls. It seems like we're sharing a poll result. Can you see the poll results? Am I being, yeah, there you go.
Oh, there we go.
Now we should be able to share this. There we go. So we'd love to hear from you what you might be doing differently over the next week or month. And what are you going to focus on? Or is it that you need to actually fill out that sort of habit tracker to begin with to really work out where your real weaknesses lie and what you need to do, or do you know yourselves well enough already? Alison, I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there anything you're going to do more of? And also, Raman, you can't get out of the woods.
Mm.
Uh, what do you think you should try and do differently?
Well, I actually need to stop eating biscuits at my desk. That's one thing, which tends to be when I feel tired and coming into sleep focus. If I feel tired in the afternoon, I will eat a biscuit to try and keep myself awake and keep focused.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's something that I need to work on.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that. Raman, anything for you? Anybody wants to share? Ramam's back to the water. Come on then. Started drinking fizzy drinks and need to quit these as I've put weight on. Okay, interesting. Come on then, Raman. Over to the water for you. I think water. What am I going to do? Yeah, it was this sort of sneaky Christmas snacks that had crept in and had become a little bit more of a focus. I also broke my ankle just around Christmas time, so I'm much less mobile. So my squats have, I tried to do a squat on one leg the other day just to see, but I thought it was a bit silly because I can't stand on the other leg at all. So I didn't want to fall over. So decided that was daft. But maybe some upper body strength I could work on over the next couple of weeks. So that's going to be my change. Great. Let's see what
Some of
everybody else
them,
is doing.
some of them are actually quite big changes, aren't they? I don't know. I see them as being quite big changes. Maybe not. Drinking more water is probably quite an easy one to incorporate. Um, but the other
Well,
ones kind of, in my mind, take some thinking about, or cutting out sugary drinks. Raman, you've got to stop doing that. But yeah, the others, there's a bit more thought that needs to go into eating more protein, working on your sleep pattern, managing stress, do you think?
yeah, I think so. It depends. We've done the last couple of weeks, we've been talking a lot about protein and food. So hopefully, if people have been along to those webinars, they've got a little bit more incentive. So that might just be something that you're continuing to work on. I think for each and every one of this, each of these will represent a different level of challenge. So some things are going to be easier, drinking more water, what does that mean? If you're only drinking one glass, even if you manage to drink two glasses a day, that would be more, wouldn't it? You don't have to go from zero to hero.
Yeah, that's true.
If
Yeah, that's true.
I was talking to a group of women the other day about protein, and a lot of them weren't having any protein at all at breakfast time. So even if you just put in some nuts at breakfast time, it's a starting point, isn't it? Or an egg. It's just about finding out where you are now and figuring out what one little step you could take that could make a bit of difference. It's not about being perfect, I would say.
Yeah, and
So,
Ben's got a good idea there for increasing his water intake. He tries to drink a glass before and after eating. So yeah, that's certainly a habit that could stick, isn't it?
exactly. And
Mm.
interestingly, there's some really interesting research that I probably picked up on a couple of weeks ago about hydration. And there's some really interesting research that one small research study looked at the effect of drinking more water, and they found that just drinking a glass of water with each of your meals made a huge difference to weight loss.
Mm.
So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
incredible.
it is
Mm.
fascinating, isn't it? So we're going to move on. Say thank you. Just to let you know, we are here next week. We're going to be talking about metabolism and how to improve that. Is there anything we can actually do? Then on the 10th, we're going to be looking at the psychology of weight loss, and we're then taking a break on the 17th, and we'll be back on the 24th. So to sign up, it is the normal Eventbrite link. And Raman, if you're able to share that, that would be great. So I'm going to stop sharing the slides, and we're going to come to your questions now. Great. So let's see. So we tend to not say names in the questions just in case people want to be anonymous, but somebody's asked if eggs are good or bad. That's a very interesting question. There was a lot of historical concern that eggs were inherently bad for us in terms of affecting our cholesterol. I think what the current evidence is that generally for most people, eggs are something that we can eat several times a week without any ill effects. And they're a great source of protein, and they're also incredibly inexpensive. So I think the better the quality egg, the better the quality outcome from eating the egg. So it just depends on who you are and which eggs you like to buy. But actually, yes, overall, I would say the balance is that they are good. There are apparently a few people who they may have a less positive effect on. And for some people, they can be constipating. So if you're one of those people, you may not enjoy eating eggs. And unfortunately for me, even though I am a nutritionist, I cannot eat eggs. They make me very unwell. That's one of my biggest regrets, is that I just dislike them so much. If I could eat them, I'd eat them several times a week, I think. Yeah. What about you, Alison? Do you agree with all of that?
I do, but I don't eat eggs because I'm really trying hard to be vegan. So eggs, yeah, it's something I've cut out my diet. So
Oh, I'd be
yeah.
interested to talk to you about that. That'd be really interesting. Great, thank you. Okay, so let's go on to our next question. Okay, so there's some medication orientated questions here. So we don't tend to answer those, unfortunately. But generically, if you are taking a weight loss medication, which obviously this webinar is for anyone who is or isn't taking a weight loss medication, we would very much recommend that you are orientating your weight loss around 1 to 2 pounds a week. So if you're taking a dose of weight loss medication that is helping you manage slow and steady weight loss, that is what we would generally recommend. And we know that if we're losing weight slowly, our body composition can adjust slowly, so it's going to have less impact on our metabolism in the long run. And we also want you to use the medication to help you make these lifestyle and behavior changes and change your habits. So if you can use it as a prop to do that, and it gives you that sort of like sense of, you know, achievement as well, then that's a, would you agree, Alison?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was going to say something, but then I thought I'd better not. It was
What
just
we,
about an advert on the telly last night, but I'm not. Yeah,
oh really?
yeah,
Okay.
about a weight loss product. I don't know
Uh,
what if. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else saw it,
perhaps.
but
Oh,
yeah, I just thought it was interesting to see it advertised on television.
I know it's making it appear like it's the, it's sort of like there's so much hype, isn't there now? Um, Sadly or happily or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, but sorry, what I was getting to was the advert actually did do a good job of giving the message across that this treatment should be to complement lifestyle changes. So that was a positive.
Oh, that is good news. That
Mm,
is good news. No, I didn't see that advert, so you have to signpost me
okay.
to it. So somebody is saying, for me, it's the inner voice, the devil, that tells me to give up eating well and go back to bad habits that I really struggle to control. Any tips? Thank you. I don't know who's asked that. You've asked it anonymously, but thank you so much for bringing that up. I can absolutely tell you categorically that you will not be the only person who is experiencing that. The sort of inner voice that is sort of like trying to persuade you. And in the psychology webinar that we're running, I think we said on the 10th of Feb, we will talk about this a lot. This is about sabotage and about your saboteurs. So, for yourself, and I imagine many other people too, saboteurs are things that 100% can prevent progress with weight loss because they are, it's almost like you have to turn that naughty little devil voice off and recognize it for what it is. You have to, it would be really good if you can come along to that webinar to bring this back there, but also in the intervening time, maybe as a tracker, start catching that little voice in your head and actually telling it to be quiet. You can be as rude to it as you want to be, but be quiet is a polite way of telling it to stop. Um, and actually just see what's going on for you apart from that, are you feeling low in mood? Are you feeling tired when that voice comes along? Is it because you've got a cupboard full of treats that other people in your house can eat and that you're desperately trying to avoid? What's the circumstances around when that voice crops up? It'd be really helpful for you to get a little bit more insight as well. You are absolutely not alone, and we do have to become a little bit focused. And I think we can also tell ourselves that we can step away from that and we can overcome that. It isn't easy, but you absolutely can overcome that, can't you, Alison?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tricky one though, tricky.
Anyone else experiencing that? Any tips from anyone here about how they've overcome that sort of like the naughty voice, the sort of the bad side of us who wants to lead us astray? It was, it is that we have those sort of habits that we do certain things and we do trip ourselves up. Yeah. So
Yeah, and I guess it comes down to distraction again, doesn't it?
just
As maybe a method of
yeah,
a,
distraction
a
can be really
strategy.
good. Maybe phoning a friend, going for a walk. Sometimes it's just taking a 5 minute break from what you're doing. Maybe it's happening when you're bored. Maybe you do need to just change up what you're doing if you can and do something differently for a few minutes. Great. Somebody saying they need healthy snack options that aren't nuts. Okay, so what could you have? You could have some hummus, some carrot sticks, anything. What would you bring in as a snack on a good day that isn't a biscuit, Alison?
Oh, fruit probably.
Yeah,
I
fruit.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm more of a vegetable person, so
Yeah.
um, yeah, but fruit just for ease. Um,
Fruit on, I mean, nuts and nut butters are very easy. So if you can't have nuts, you could have some hummus. If you're okay to eat hummus, that can be really helpful. There's a little bit
mm,
of protein, maybe a hard-boiled egg if you're an egg eater. You could bring in some tofu if you eat tofu, make tofu really tasty. You could make some protein balls. They're really simple to make. Um, Anything that you eat for a lunch, a cold lunch can become a snack. So you can have like a little mini meal that can easily become a snack. Snacks don't have to be treats. I think
what are
that's the
protein
key.
balls then?
Oh gosh, I love protein balls. They're
What's in
sort of like
those?
you would make them, you can buy them or you can make them yourself. Again, they have got nuts in quite often. So what would you put in instead of nuts? You could do some coconut oil and some cocoa and some oats and maybe a few of the sort of I'm thinking goji berries because there's a lot of research around goji berries being helpful. So just mashing it up together or some
Okay.
lemon to make it lemony. Yeah, just some healthy fats. I think we are often lacking in healthy fats, and I sometimes think people get cravings because they're just not getting enough of those healthy fats. And what they've learned to have instead is something sugary. But actually, if they had a healthy fat instead, that might give them what they need.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah, interesting.
yeah, some cocoa. Yum. Okay, so how's that? Are those healthy snacks hitting you? I hope so. Any ideas? Do share them in the box. Okay, so what sorts of protein would you recommend for vegetarians? Okay, well, we've just mixed up a few of those. Alison, any more? You'd add some tofu, nuts, eggs.
Yeah, yeah, because yeah, I'm assuming yeah, if you're vegetarian, not vegan, eggs, but chickpeas,
Yeah, and
they're protein,
lentils.
aren't they?
Yeah,
Yeah, all those sorts of foods. Um,
I mean,
not sure
tofu's
what else.
fantastic. Things
Yeah, I
like
love
it
tofu.
is all of the legumes and things like edamame beans you could add into the mix.
All the beans.
And the one
Yeah.
one thing I don't know if you eat this, but quinoa is fantastic as a sort of protein. It's the only vegetarian protein that is full, that has all of the amino acids in it. So it's a complete protein. and it's the only vegetarian protein that is a complete protein. So that would be something that you could consider. And if you're happy, you could eat some dairy if that fits into your sort of way of eating. Obviously, less so for other people who are vegans.
Mhm.
Okay. Somebody is saying they get really tired after they exercise. Um, Great. We also have some sheets, Raman, that you could share. There's a vegetarian handout, I think, on what to eat as well. So that would have all of the proteins on. So if you could share a link to those, that would be really helpful. It's a vegetarian and vegan guide. Somebody's saying they get super tired after exercising. Okay. Is that a standalone comment? Okay. I'm exercising much more weights and someone recommended creatine powder. I think that is a very personalized question, to be honest, because there are all sorts of health reasons that you might want to consider it, but there are also some specific health reasons why it wouldn't necessarily be safe for you. But what you could do is you could make yourself a smoothie, and that would be very safe. And something that you could add in some berries too, some avocados too, maybe some yogurt, whether it's a plant-based yogurt or a dairy-based yogurt, entirely up to you. But that would be a really easy win. Maybe a few oats could go into that to give you a few of the complex carbohydrates as well. And that might be something to have straight after your exercise session to really catch you before you fall. That's where I would start. I always start with food and take it from there. So I don't know if you're already doing that, but that might be something to consider. What about flavors for your water, like Robinson's Mini Orange, no added sugar, or Robinson's Mini Apple and Blackcurrant on the go? Okay, I've got thoughts on that. What about you, Alison? We aren't great lovers of the
Mm,
sugar-free options.
yeah, I'm thinking about teeth again, I'm afraid.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. Oh, sorry, was that sugar free?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I'm not too, I mean, I would never, I don't think, recommend any kind of a flavored squash or um, any, well, certainly fizzy drinks, but just because of the other ingredients that get put in,
yeah.
to give it that
And what
taste.
Yeah, and one of the things that we know about the sugar-free is those ingredients are, the research is beginning to be published as to the health concerns around those. But also we know that our bodies haven't adapted to recognize the difference between a drink with sugar in and a drink that tastes as if it's got sugar in. So physiologically, you may have the same sort of response in your blood sugar as you would to a sort of standard squash or whatever. So in which case, the benefit is outweighed by your body's response to it because you're going to be releasing insulin because your body is getting a message that it's having something sweet. So we want to calm down those insulin spikes as much as we can. We want to go for stability with that. We will have insulin spikes when we eat, but if we're drinking squash on and off all day, even if it's the sugar-free variety, then that could be a problem and can really get in the way of losing weight. So we want to really be thinking about that. So it's a really great question. And sorry for the
Mm.
bad news. Somebody's asking if there's such a thing as sugar. I'm sorry to say that, Ben. You're really gutted to hear this. One of the things you could do instead, and it is really like the next step on, is maybe adding some berries into, you can get those water bottles that you can, they have a compartment that you can add fruit into. That's very posh. You can just chuck them in a normal water bottle and take the lid off and wash it all out at the end of the day. But adding mint, cucumber, berries, slices of apple, whatever you like the flavor of can really work. Maybe a couple of slices of orange if you like an orange squash. It's surprising your taste buds will change, and you will begin to enjoy that. Initially, you might think, "Oh, crikey, what is she going on about?" But literally, as you get rid of that sugar fix or the sort of artificial sugar fix, you will notice that your taste buds have changed and that these things become more palatable and more enjoyable. it's going through that process, isn't it? Do you agree, Alice?
I do, yeah. So I was looking at the next comment about drinking regular tea. Sorry, drinking tea as a regular drink. I just interested to know what your thoughts are on that, Ruth. I mean, it's caffeine, isn't it? Unless you've got
Yeah,
caffeine free.
I think it
And the
really,
milk, the
yeah,
milk.
it depends on who you are, where you are on your journey, what other things you have to put in that are going to make the difference. If you're already doing a lot that's right, then thinking about tea and how often you're having that would be something to get to. I think it is just literally creating a plan. So if if you're not having enough protein or your breakfast is very carbohydrate sort of rich with a lot of cereal, it really depends on who you are, where you are in this journey. For me, tea is something that we should try and have around meal times because then it sort of just gets sucked into the response that our body is having to that meal. Whereas if I meet people and talk to them a lot about food, and I'm surprised there are people who are drinking huge amounts of teas and coffees in the day. And that may be something that is getting in your way. So I think it is about just being honest with yourself. And if you're doing everything right, but you're drinking lots of tea and you're really not losing weight, try swapping some of that for water and see what happens. Yeah. Um, Somebody's saying about sugar, is sugar withdrawal a thing? It's a question in the Q&A box. It's a great question. This person tends to start craving sugar after an extended period of eating more healthily. Then you give in and go slightly on or completely off track for a few weeks. Ah, that's a really good question. Is that physical? Is it physiological or is it psychological? It's probably a little bit of both. But the interesting thing here is that you're saying it's after an extended period of eating more healthily. So it feels from what you're saying there that this is a sort of a habit. And one of the things we'll talk about in another webinar is the language that we use to ourselves. So, what I'm reading in your question is that your belief is that you are going to have this period where you go off track and you will go completely off track for a few weeks because you can't stay on track. So what your learnt experience of losing weight in the past has been that this is what you've done. And this is why we need to go for that sort of like 80% rule that we're very keen that you get to, that you can be really, really focused and good 80 to 90% of the time. And you can allow yourself a treat every now and then so that you don't fall into this absolute desperation where sugar and sugary treats have become something that you're desperate to have, because the research 100% tells us that this is exactly what people do, that if we go without and we feel as if we're missing out, we will then the sort of knee-jerk reaction is at some point we will overeat and we'll go a little bit mad on those foods. So Alison, you might need to have biscuits once or twice a week and have healthy treats the rest of the time. So yeah, it's sort of like about being pragmatic with it rather than all out, because it can really just do what you're telling us. So yeah, if you can come along to that psychology webinar, we'll pick that up a bit more. But it's a really, you're not alone, and actually you're so not alone because this is researched. So this pattern of behavior is really understood in the whole sort of weight loss arena as sort of like that boom and bust mentality. You're either really good or you go mad. And what we want is for you to get rid of the whole diet word. I'm on a diet. We want you to learn patterns of eating that sustain you and you feel energetic and great. And you're no longer on a diet. You're eating in a way that you can enjoy and that you don't feel as if you're going without. It's sort of like a big shift. from being a nurse on the wards eating boxes of chocolates to becoming a nutritionist. That was the journey I went on. It took me years. So we're not expecting this to happen for you overnight. I think, we have to, the kindness and the recognizing the journey aspect of it. If you're preparing to climb a mountain, you wouldn't expect to go and climb that mountain tomorrow. You would do a lot of preparation and thinking and planning. And for many people, a weight loss journey is very similar. Would you agree with that, Alison?
I would agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. Don't have much to add to that, really, Ruth, to be fair.
Yeah,
I just wanted to bring up about the in a comment there about herbal teas are absolutely fine.
yeah,
Yeah, nothing wrong with herbal teas. I think better quality ones, look at the ingredients just to make sure there's no nasty things added. But they're actually a good substitute if you love your hot drinks, your teas and your coffees.
yeah, yeah.
Find one that you like. Yeah, very good substitute.
Yeah. Okay, there are all sorts of other interesting questions that we haven't quite managed to get to, but we are at 2 o'clock, so we are going to bring the webinar to a close. Thank you so much for being here. It's been lovely having you with us today, Alison. I hope you're going to come back. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined us today and to Raman for all of your support. And we are back next week, so please do come along if you can. And there will be a recording of today's webinar that will go into the YouTube folder. So if you want to re-listen, you're very welcome to pick that up as well. All right. Take care, everyone, and have a good week and look after yourselves.
Please do. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.